Welcome, everybody, to today's webinar program. My name is Alec Cooley. I'm a senior advisor here with Busch Systems, and I welcome you to today's program. This is part of our regular ongoing green thinking webinar series. We do roughly every other month, all focused on waste reduction related issues in one form or another. And as you can see from the title, today's program is Zero Waste Audits, taking the full measure of waste reduction programs. So as a sort of setup for this program, many of us are familiar with the concept of zero waste, which goes beyond recycling, involving upstream waste prevention, reuse, and other practices to eliminate as much of the waste sent to the landfill as possible. In the same way that a traditional waste audit looks at what's going into the bin and provides that important insights about contamination or waste recovery that helps to improve recycling and diversion programs, a zero waste audit goes another level also. It's looking, analyzing the broader system for how an organization purchases, consumes products and materials, how they're used and how they're discarded, looking sort of holistically at the system to provide that insights to how do you fine-tune and improve all these broader practices that you would do before materials even get to a waste bin. So with today's program, if we can go to the next slide, we have two speakers. Next slide, please. Great. So we have two fantastic presentations today. First, we're going to hear from Stephanie Barger, who is a Director of Market Transformation and Development with the True Certification Program and is with the U.S. Green Building Council. Stephanie's going to give a high-level overview about both the True Advisory Program, certification program primer, and also going to talk about this auditing process. How do you go about doing that? Where do you look at throughout your organization's systems to really understand how materials are being used? Following her presentation, we're going to hear from Keith Wojciechowski, who is a senior manager, Global Environmental Health and Safety, Environmental Compliance with Colgate-Palmolive. And Keith is going to give us the case study example of how Colgate-Palmolive is implementing the True program and using these processes throughout the facilities around the world. So we'll look forward to their presentations in just a moment. We can go to the next slide. With webinars, of course, we don't have the ability to bring people on live, but we do want to encourage as much interaction with the audience as possible. So we encourage you to use your both the chat and Q&A functionality in your toolbar to engage. Just keep in mind, the chat is a great place to leave comments. We'd love to hear your own examples of things that you might be doing. If there are points you agree or your experience is different from points being made by the speaker, that's all great to toss into the chat. I'd love to have see a good dialogue with that. And Stephanie and Keith, I encourage you also just to interact with people in the chat. If you have a question specifically that you would like to hear answered at the end of the program, go ahead and put that separately into the Q&A function. So just keep in mind, if you put something into the chat, we may or may not see it, but if it goes into the Q&A, there's a greater likelihood that I'll be able to introduce those questions at the end of the program. So keep that in mind. And we will, at the end of the program, all of both the recording and the slide deck and some of the resources we'll be sharing, some of the chat back and forth, we'll have a curated version of those that we'll be posting on to our website. So they'll be there archived if you want to come back and rewatch or see some of these resources afterward or share them with a colleague. Next slide. So before we get started, let's do a quick live poll question. You're going to see in a moment this pop up in your screen. And the question is just sort of getting an idea of who's in the room and what your level of experience is with zero waste practices. Is in your job at your facility, are you just focused on recycling and diversion programs, or do you have that basic, even if you don't work directly with it, but you've got the basic fluency of zero waste practices more broadly? Are there some where you actually are doing some of these upstream practices directly, working on procurement or other issues? Or is this sort of really your broad focus of what you're doing in your position, looking at zero waste practices beyond just simple recycling or organics diversion? So we'll give folks another 10 or so seconds to respond to this. And before we move on, looks like we have a good showing today. I've seen about 170 people signed up, so that's or joining us. That's fantastic. Okay, let's go ahead. If we can end the poll and just share the results. Looks like actually a decent showing. About 35% of folks are working on broader zero waste practices beyond recycling and all. And it looks like in the low 20s with the other categories. So that's great. That helps us, gives us an idea of who's joining us today. Let's go. We can go ahead and turn that off now, and we can move on to our first speaker. We can go to the next slide. So, as I said, we're going to start off with Stephanie Barger, who is a Director of Marketing Transformation and Development with the True Certification Program and U.S. Green Building Council. Stephanie is an old colleague. We've worked with each other a lot over the years, going back. But you can see she first got involved in the environmental and sustainability field as the founder and director of the Earth Resource Foundation in 2000. And I can remember back in 2011 or so when she launched the U.S. Zero Waste Business Council, which has evolved, and I can let her share a little bit more, but they were really involved in sort of the genesis of bringing the True Certification Program and some of these practices into the mainstream. So let me go ahead and hand it over to Stephanie and learn more about what you're doing with USGBC and True. Okay. And Stephanie may need help pulling on her camera and audio.
Hey.
Okay, I can hear you, Stephanie.
Great.
There we go. Welcome. I'll hand it over to you.
Great, thanks so much. Let's see, next slide. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to learn more about True and to enhance your audits. So True stands for Total Resource Use and Efficiency. And we rebranded from just zero waste certification. Number one, because people thought you already had to be zero waste to apply for our certification. But more importantly, we want to truly value all resources. So not only the material resources, but the human resources and your financial resources. And then True is all about making your business and your facility very efficient. The less materials we're having to handle, the more efficient we'll be, the more time saving that we'll have. Next slide. So True is part of the U.S. Green Building Council. We are over 30 years old. We are a global organization with about 350 employees all over the world. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. So we not only provide lots of education, we have our advocacy team, our green schools, Center for Green Schools, and then lots of free programs. And we're working in our communities to make them better. And then our sister organization, Green Business Certification, Inc., is our third-party certifier. Basically, we work for both companies, but that is who you submit your applications to. That's who handles all of our credentialing. And as you can see, we have many different certifications. So I encourage you to explore all of those. Next. So what is zero waste? I think we all have a basic knowledge of it, and especially from the poll. And we all understand the zero waste hierarchy, where our goal is to reduce and reuse and send as little as possible, if hopefully nothing, to incineration, waste to energy, waste to fuel, and landfilling, and of course the environment. Next. So this is the definition from the Zero Waste International Alliance, which is a global organization. They work on all types of zero waste, but they're very focused on at the community level and really uplifting communities and cities and governments. This is an older definition, but I really like it because zero waste affects every part of our system, right? It's about eco-justice. It's about finances. It's about being visionary. It's about changing our lifestyles and practices and really eliminating that word waste and talking about materials and resources. And then not only redesigning our waste management systems, but your internal waste management systems into zero waste. And that means redesigning our processes and products. And that's why True has been so successful globally, because we're not dependent on the waste management system. We go way beyond that. And then really about, looking at how we can, reduce our impact on Mother Earth. All of these materials, especially the very toxic one, once again, affect every part of our life. Next. So one of the biggest challenges is we do not have a zero waste economy. California has a lot of the parts of the zero waste economy. Chile actually has very strong producer responsibility. Even China has a national waste management program, but there are parts that are missing. And so what I encourage all of you to do is really understand what is your local zero waste economy. And it's okay if things are missing because you can help create markets. And that's the beauty of True and working together in zero waste is putting in producer responsibility, whether it's a law or just something at your own company, getting take-back programs, turning all of our landfills into resource recovery parks, and all about jobs. Next. And of course, the bigger issue is getting these materials out of our landfills. And so in California, we've basically banned compost from landfills. And, this helps clean it up and gets those valuable resources. Compost is one of the biggest sources of decarbonization, not only about getting it out of the landfill, but returning it to our farms and our forests and regrowing soil. And that's why in True, we call it re-earth. It's also about creating those jobs, and recycling and composting. The more that we're able to divert materials, the cleaner and better jobs we'll be able to have. In fact, I just heard from the governor of Kentucky, and it was built a couple of years ago, but Pratt built the greenest paper recycling plant, and they're paying employees $40 an hour, which is amazing. And then the other thing is, as a business, is really helping you to meet and exceed your local and state zero waste goals. And being part of that as businesses, it's very important that you get involved and to really support them and to understand that. Also, with True certification, you've pretty much met and exceeded a lot of the regulations. So moving ahead so that you can focus on your core business. Next. And then partnerships, partnerships, partnerships. So the more partners that you can have, government partners, nonprofit partners, we've worked closely with the Retail Industry Leaders Association on plastic film, getting all of these resources and growing these markets. Next. So what is True certification? As Alex said, we developed this in 2011, and it was really because all these businesses came together and they said, there really isn't any certification for zero waste. There was the LEED certification for green buildings. And so we brought all the best of the best together, and many of you helped support this and develop the True certification. Next. So we are not a waste management program. We're about looking at the materials, the resources, and commodities. And I encourage all of you to redo your waste management program into a zero waste or a material. If we keep focusing on waste, we keep falling back into that same paradigm. We need to add value. We need to create a circular closed loop economy. And that's by looking upstream and engaging all of our supply chains and engaging all of our employees in leadership. One of my favorite things about True and Zero Waste is uplifting all of those people in our companies. And of course, saving and making money. Next. So this is an overview of the True rating system. And as you can see, the most points are on zero waste purchasing. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but really identifying what is coming into your building, whether it's what you're purchasing or what employees, customers are bringing in. But really looking at that and putting up guardrails. It's not going to be perfect, but you want to at least put it out there, and that your focus is to reduce and reuse. And then it's also about a deep dive into your waste management and hopefully your zero waste management now plans and goals. So looking at how you're reporting all these materials and the analysis, especially the financial analysis, like when you eliminate a trash bin, even if you're not getting paid for your recycled material, you already save $40 a ton if that's what your landfill rate is. So it's important to look at that financial, and not only the financials of the actual materials, but also the time saved, and also looking at water and energy. And then, like we said, we want to close the loop, and that's pulling back the curtain on, you know, where your materials are going, and asking those reprocessors and those recyclers to track it. So, you know, we don't really consider it recycling unless you can track it and buy it back. If it's just going into a mixed recycling bin and there's a lot of contamination, it's not the fault of the MRF, but a lot of those materials end up back in the landfill, and they're not clean, and so it makes it harder to close the loop. So the more you can source, separate. Next. So we have over 600 facilities certified in over 41 countries. And I will say Colgate's been the first in many of these countries. And that's why I say zero waste can be done anywhere. I mean, they've gotten sites certified in Thailand and Ecuador and Greece and Africa, all over the world. And we're just so proud of them. We actually have over 1,700 facilities that are certified, and many large companies like Google and MasterCard, they're getting their global portfolios like Colgate is doing certified. So this is really expediting the growth of True. But at the same time, we certify very small facilities. We have a 1,500 square foot lease space, Cocoa Taps that is certified, and very large facilities like Microsoft in Washington, which is 125 buildings and 50,000 employees. So it's like a small city. So that huge range that we're able to adapt to. Next. And then we have our True Advisor program, and I'd love for you to put in the chat if you're a True Advisor. This is a professional credential, and this is for a couple of reasons. We really want to build our zero waste experts and give credibility to people that are looking to get into that profession. So we're very excited. Organizations like Boston University actually put it in the job description and in the announcement that the person need to be a True Advisor or become a True Advisor. So it's adding that credibility, but more importantly, if you are pursuing True, it is a walkthrough credit by credit with case studies and examples of how to complete your True certification. I'm also really proud of companies like Glambia. They've actually paid for over 70 true advisors. Republic has done the same thing, and they're using it as a training tool for all of their employees. With Glanbia, it doesn't matter if you're a receptionist on the manufacturing line, in the accounting department. It's just an opportunity to get everybody speaking the same language and switch from that waste economy to a zero waste economy. Next. And it's about involving all of your stakeholders. And don't wait until you have a zero waste plan in place. As quickly as possible, notify all your upstream vendors, your downstream, your operations. A lot of us have outside property management, janitorial, food service providers. And we work a lot with all of those food service providers like Compass, Sodexo, Aramark, janitorial. We work with Able, SBM Management, Property Management, CBRE, JLL. Bring them in. Many of them are also true advisors and have gone through our training programs. And then with your community, yes, you want to talk to the food banks and get food donated. You want, give donations to different nonprofits, but also leverage their expertise. If you're having people, not understanding why plastic pollution is so bad, bring in Surfrider, the, Plastic Pollution Coalition, or Heal the Bay. And then utilize your schools, right? So make sure that you're not only donating and supporting them, but also our universities and community college. They have brilliant people and professors and classes that can do a lot of research. And these young people really want to be engaged in the new economy. Next.
Stephanie, just to let you know, we have about 10 minutes left.
Okay, great. We will go through this. So office spaces, once again, it's about partnerships. So a lot of people say, oh, our tenants don't want to do it, or the janitorial team doesn't want to do it, or the property owner. Just bring everybody together. Next. So we're going to go through some strategies and really get into that zero waste audit. Next. So if you're not for zero waste, how much waste are you for? And this is a tribute to Gary Liss, but also because we have to keep asking that question, right? So why are we auditing? So first of all is knowing what is currently in our dumpsters, but also, what is that costing you? Are you collecting empty or partially full bins? Is unflattened cardboard because you don't have a baler? So it's necessary to do this. And I love this quote from Ryan McMullen of Lean Path. We have to start recycling, then you have to recycle everything, which means source separating. And then once you get to your source separating, you can really look at reduction and reuse. Next. So a typical waste audit is we look at all these materials. Next. And then we're seeing like what bin does it go into? Oh, these are recyclables. This is trash. This is compost. Next. But zero waste is really about eliminating all of your bins. And that might be through source separation. It might be through donating food. It might be refusing those trash materials to come into your facility, either through zero waste purchasing. So this is a very high goal, but businesses, you are not a composter or recycler or a trash hauler. So these are all costing you money. All of these bins are. So moving upward and starting somewhere. Next. So I love this photo because this is a zero waste audit. He not only has recycling and trash, but he has a reuse bin. So everything that's going in the reuse bin, they're going to relook at and then see how they can turn those into reusables. And the warehouse in Yellowstone, it only operates about 6 months out of the year because of the snow and everything. Small warehouse, but they saved over $263,000 over 3 years. And this is where we want to lean into and really get leadership on board. Next. So conducting that zero waste audit, profiling, reducing, reusing. This also reduces your risk and increases efficiency, and then robust tracking programs along with leadership and employee engagement. So I'm going to do a deep dive into some of these next. So the zero waste audit versus the waste audit, I think the main thing is do your site plans first. And your site plan is not only outside, but inside. In so many different companies, it's just about eliminating all those random trash bins and recycling bins. And then look at each area of generation, which I'm going to go through a little bit more. Look at the flow of operations. And then also make sure that you're not just looking at trash costs, but energy and water, right? Because if you go paperless, then you're reducing your energy use from all that printing and faxing and everything. Next. Next. So with your waste audit, you need to do these for right sizing, illegal dumping, service levels, but you've already wasted everything, right? Most people only do them once a year. So all that money, time, and effort is already gone. Next, where zero waste audit is active. It's happening every day, every week, and it's really focused on each department or area generation. So what do you need in your offices versus what do you need in your kitchens versus warehousing, mail rooms, bathrooms? And also, if you're going zero waste, why do you have large trash cans? So appropriately sizing recycling bins, source separated bins, composting bins. Next. So this is an example of zero waste profiling. This is actually Rico Electronics, and they're over the top zero waste. But every single piece of material, whether it's the actual part or all the materials the part comes in, gets identified and puts on a mapping. And then they look through to see how that's flowing through their factories, where it's going, and then how they can push back on making sure they're not bringing all that extra packaging in, and then also find unique opportunities. So one of the materials they found, it was just rubber, but it was actually eraser material that was used for packaging, and they donated it to the local school. Next. So just some zero waste audit pro tips. So we need to keep looking at those bins inside and outside. So make sure you're looking at the time of day, seasonal trends. You know, you need to have all your supplies so that you are ready to look through it. And then know your company, how and what they do, what their goals are, what existing policies. A lot of people have great policies, but they're not being implemented. And then all of their current material hauling and how you can maximize that. And then measure, measure, measure. There's amazing apps, spreadsheets, monitors, and looking at weight versus volume. So plastic film is very voluminous and it can fill up your dumpsters very quickly. So that's where it might be important to invest in a baler, and it can be a small baler for all that film plastic. Been working with the wine industry. Label backing is a big thing. For the most part, they were just taking the label backing when it was done right through the machine. It was very voluminous. So the first thing they did is they started rolling it back onto the spools that it came on. And then they found a reprocessor that picked it up, and they saved hundreds and hundreds of dollars on their trash bill. And then looking at your reduction and reuse. Next. So once again, just make sure that you're getting the accurate numbers and that you're really looking through it constantly. There's a lot of great haulers and recyclers out there that are also moving into the 21st century with their technology, but you should be able to get your hauling and your billing and your weights as quickly as possible so you can make those changes that are needed. And then adjusting. So, you know, maybe it's cheaper to get a 6-yard bin once a week than a 3-yard bin. And really evaluating that just like you would evaluate any other purchasing, hiring of employees, and looking at the cost versus just looking at weights and volumes. Next. You can click through these. Once again, looking at your weight versus volume. And next. So this was an example of, using a composter because they thought they had a lot of compostables, but maybe because of the weight, they needed a dumpster. And I would strongly encourage you to get rid of any trash compactors. They're a black hole. You don't know what's going in. It's really hard to audit, and they can cost you a lot of money. So if you have a compactor, make it a paper compactor, a cardboard compactor, a plastic film compactor. If you don't own it, then switch to other types of bins. Next. So I love Sierra Nevada. They have sorted into 12 different commodities. So when you go to their back of house, there are 12 different types of bins out there. And they don't use just one recycler or one reprocessor. They do their due diligence and look at the different commodity pricing and what is happening. And you need to be very nimble, even with their compost. They have a hot rod on site. They use an industrial composter and they feed cows. So it's about being nimble and not just having one size, but all the different technologies that you can bring in to help you maximize what you're doing. Next. So another thing is effective surveying. The environmental literacy is really very low. And, people want to be green and they think they want to be green, but I put the chasing arrow symbols there. Hopefully we're getting rid of that. But most people don't even know what the chasing arrow symbols mean, and especially on plastic. All it means is the resin type. It has nothing to do with the recyclability. So I encourage you to put together a survey, and I will share our survey that I put together many years ago for companies. But you want it sent by leadership. Get the CEO involved. Get your managers trained so everybody's prepared. Have it virtual and hard copy, and only give people 2 or 3 days. And you want to understand how people want to be communicated with. People put great things on SharePoint or on a website, but nobody sees it. So does it need to be in an email? Needs to be on a TV screen? Encourage you to talk about zero waste in every single meeting, accounting, purchasing, sales, whatever meeting's happening, just spend 5 minutes. What are you doing for zero waste? And then with the survey, you want to ask them where they're at in the company, how long they've been there, how old they are, what department. And then we survey them not only on what they're doing at work, but also at home with energy, water, transportation, commuting, and then what they know. So then you have a really great foundation to develop your educational tools. Next. And then employee engagement. You want to interview a diversity of staff, the receptionist versus the CEO, how long they've been there. And these can just be quick 15 minutes. However, I will tell you, once you get people engaged in zero waste in the environment, they have a lot to say. And especially the ones that you don't think are so green, they usually have the most to say. And then really looking at your practices versus policies. This is a picture at Raytheon. They had their serving up sustainability. Their cafeterias were all reusable, but they did have compostable. When I walked into the cafeteria, everybody had their disposable compostables. But it was a simple fix. By just observing, they were able to make those harder to get. And then the next time, everybody was using reusables. And then training, keep it simple. Every meeting, get your people into the dumpster. They don't have to do a full waste audit, but have them see what's happening. Have them have discussions about it. Next. And then be that leader. Zero waste will never happen. That's why we appreciate companies like Colgate. They don't say, oh, this can't be recycled. There's no market. It's not happening in this country. They lean into it. And with our support, all of our partners' support, we're able to create robust programs and educate other businesses. And that's probably my favorite thing about the True community. We have, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin talking to each other, Whole Foods, Safeway, Albertsons talking to each other. And Keith's going to share more about what Colgate is doing to influence the toothpaste world. But getting involved and really making that happen. Next. And just quickly with environmental purchasing guidelines, and I know I'm going a little bit over, but we'll be quick. So the main thing is putting it out there to your vendors. It doesn't have to be complex. Just say, we're going to choose recyclable, compostable. We're going to notify everybody. And then just make a simple checklist and send it out to the vendors and have them complete it. And then once again, we want to close the loop. So work with your vendors. If they're giving you a hard to recycle material, work with them of how they can take it back. And then sometimes you need to speak to the global or national sustainability team versus the sales team. And then help your vendors get to zero waste. They're going to save money and you're going to save money. Next. So this is an example. Distribution centers are doing a lot, and they're a great way to look through and see what materials and hard to recycle materials are coming through your system. And this is even if you're an office building or a stadium, you have that back of house. So I'll just give one example. REI, they started charging all of their vendors for film plastic. It was a nominal fee, but it was a, hey, you're sending us all this material. It's hard to recycle. It's costing us money. So once again, thinking out of the box. Next. And then Toyota, this was several years ago. They did this, but they're doing a great job recycling cardboard boxes. They went to reusable shipping containers and saved $1 billion. So once again, we're always talking about money. And either reducing, reusing, recycling, sort of separating, creating robust markets. Next. And so this is a summary of what we went over and just making sure you're looking at all these different components and then really pulling it all together. And remember that zero waste is about continuous improvement. So it's keeping it moving every single day, every week, every month. And that's why doing a zero waste audit in the individual departments or just going by and looking at your bins, you can quickly change your educational programs, your signage, how much money you're saving and making. So I encourage you to lean into your zero waste audits and create this closed loop circular economy. Next. So True V2 is coming. We'll be launching hopefully next week, and we would love to hear from you. This is an opportunity through USGBC's format is whenever we're changing a rating system, we want the public to give us their feedback and really drive the program. Next. Great. And please contact me, and I'll be looking in the chat and answering questions later. Thanks, Alec.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. There's a lot going on there with the True program. My hat's off to what you and others have built. I know I got certified as an advisor 2 or 3 years ago. There's a lot of good information there. Let's bring up a quick, actually, you know what? I'm going to hold off on the live poll just in the interest of time. So let's go ahead and we'll hold some other questions for the end. But if we can bring up Keith's presentation real quick. So next we have Keith Wojciechowski, again, who's a senior manager with Global Environmental Health and Safety, Environmental Compliance with Colgate-Palmolive. Prior to Colgate-Palmolive, you can see he was doing EHS work with Ortho Clinical Diagnostics as well as Johnson & Johnson. And so, Keith, you've got a lot of background here. Look forward to hearing what you're doing with Colgate-Palmolive.
Hey, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Again, thank you for this opportunity to tell you a little bit about Colgate's journey with True certification. Just a little bit more about me. I recently joined Colgate-Palmolive's global EHS team at the end of last year, and I'm picking up on all the tremendous work that all of my colleagues have done to really move True to where it is in Colgate so far. So this presentation is definitely a testament to them. And they say that the last 10% of the journey is the hardest. And that's totally, where we are right now. We have a ambition to have 100% of our sites True certified, and we're close, but we are definitely on the back leg of the race to get all of our sites certified. So being at Colgate, and we don't need a Zoom poll question for this, but I have a question for everyone, and the answer is pretty obvious if you're looking at this slide, but here's the question for you. What is a common item that you can't recycle in your bathroom until now? Well, again, we don't need a Zoom poll, but the answer is pretty obvious. It is a toothpaste tube, and we'll dive into that in the discussion just a little bit later as it applies to the intent and principles of True. So I would be remiss if I didn't tell you a little bit more about Colgate's products. Amazing products beyond toothpaste. Certainly, we're much more than a toothpaste company. We are Colgate-Palmolive, and we operate in 4 categories. You may not have known. Of course, oral care, but we also have our home care category with products like Fabuloso and Ajax, personal care with products like Soft Soap and Speed Stick, and we actually have a specialty skin line within that category, like Elta MD. And then finally, our final category is pet nutrition, which through the Hell's Pet Nutrition feeds. And I currently work in the Piscataway, New Jersey global headquarters, which is our global R&D center. Here's our mission, to be caring, innovative growth company that is reimagining a healthier future for all people, their pets, and our planet. So this mission is definitely deeply rooted in our products and their connection to people and planets and their pets. And we very clearly state here that a stakeholder is the planet, and we are stewards to providing a better planet. So True definitely aligns with our mission. Whoops. Let's see. So today I'm going to cover, let's see, what is this? 5 overview topics that hopefully supplements Stephanie's information. Obviously, very much does. So today we'll cover leadership in sustainability, going beyond diversion and sharing some packaging improvements, a little bit about elements of environmental purchasing policies, and then we'll talk a little bit about offices, which certainly can be challenging, but I always like to have fun with the programs there. All right, so let's begin to look at leadership and True, or leadership in our True sustainability journey. We've played in the zero waste space for a very long time. This timeline starts in 2010, when I can point back to when we first developed internal tools and resources to be shared with our sites. We still have a playbook to this day called the Trash to Treasure playbook, and it's essentially a how to do a waste audit, which is a key component of True certification. In 2013, we issued a challenge to our sites to apply for a zero waste to landfill award. And that was kind of, where we started with sites, achieving reductions and getting awards for it. That naturally just evolved into True Zero Waste certification, where our first site was certified in 2017, which we build upon and actually, stated in our 2020 sustainability strategy for the next 5 years that we were going to move to operating, high efficiency, low impact, zero waste facilities. And with that goal, right now we are at 52 True Zero Waste certifications. 35 plants, 8 warehouses, 8 offices, and 1 global technology center, operating in 26 countries and 6 continents. And as Stephanie said, USGBC is always impressed with our international presence, sites in LATAM, Europe, Asia. We're definitely quick adopters, and came along with the North America sites as well. And I think, this quote here from a pet nutrition employee might give some insight to that. Here the person gives their philosophy, saying that, what you have or what you are given is what you're responsible for, and what degree or what level you want to take, that's a personal choice. If you have the knowledge and the passion and the capabilities, why not? Such an impactful quote. Stephanie mentioned when you get folks to open up and engage with them and talk about why they do the things they do, especially for the planet, you get some amazing feedback. And especially with the pet nutrition site, a lot of our sites are in the Midwest, in the agricultural belt of the U.S. and their communities are agriculture and farmers, and they're very close to the earth. And I think that's probably helps contribute. We harnessed the passion of those employees to implement our programs. And I think the same comes true of dense areas without a lot of resources to do these programs. It's really the employees that are the quick adopters and the ones that will roll up their sleeves and say, this is how we get it done. All right, so now let's look a little bit about how we go beyond diversion, and I have a couple examples here, and just a great place to start is looking at what's coming into your facility, from shipping and receiving. What are you staging that's feeding your production lines, and are there any opportunities? So for us and everyone, going beyond diversion means looking at the entire supply chain, focusing on waste elimination in our factories and for our customers. Again, packaging is a great opportunity to look at. You can see here 2 examples where we looked at packaging and how they were significant wins for us. So in the first case on the left, you'll see shrink wrapped trays, and these are trays of materials that we use to fill our products into. Before True, this was all cardboard and plastic wrap, and certainly we recycled that. But a better option was for us to invest in reusable containers that can be resent back to our suppliers to be decontaminated and reused over and over again. So that was tremendous for us. And then just always looking at how can we re-engineer. Here's pallets of dog food that we ship to our customers, and they had a thick film on it at one time and a top sheet on it as well. So bringing in an engineering team saying, is there value add to having that extra top sheet? And actually what we saw through we came up with a new way to actually stack the material on the pallet that protected it, and we were able to eliminate that top sheet. So now when these pallets arrive in large distributors, that's not a waste that our customers have to deal with. Just another example here as well, very similar in fashion in reusing containers. We emphasize reuse. So if we can't invest in a reusable container, can we break down the existing container and send it back and have it reassembled? And that's what we do here with Gaylord boxes, where we'll receive supplies within them, we'll break them down, bale them, and ship them back for reassembly. And on average, we could get 3 or 4 uses out of these containers. And we'd be breaking them down anyway to put into our balers and our recyclers, recycling units. So there is no extra labor really in this process because we would have to bale it and break down the container. So rather than feeding a compactor or a baler, we're feeding a truck to actually send this material back, or a trailer. Oh, and another example, on the packaging line of upstream management and redesign, we found that corrugated cores, we generated a lot of them. A lot of our material comes on large spools. We need large spools of laminate to make the outside of our containers or assemble tubes. And they look like they're made out of cardboard. In fact, they are. They are corrugate, but they're really very dense. They're pressed together with lots and lots of glue layers. And really, these type of cores don't get recycled, even though they do look like cardboard, is what we learned from actually talking to our recycling centers. So we actually, worked with the spooling companies to say, hey, can we have a reusable spool? It seems counterintuitive that you're making a spool out of plastic, but we actually send it back over and over again for respooling, which eliminated this waste stream. All right, innovation, and this is where we'll talk a little bit about toothpaste tubes. So we talked about the packaging material and the different containers that stuff arrives on, and some of the parts that we need to actually get these materials into our printing systems and into our manufacturing lines. But what about the actual materials, right? So organizations like TerraCycle, partnering with them, as Stephanie mentioned, it's a network, it's a community, and we've found lots of outlets for shredding plastics and laminates at our facilities. And TerraCycle has aligned us with, probably everybody has seen the dimensional lumber and the park benches, but there's so many products that could be made out of post-consumer plastic, like in this example, cleaning supplies, janitorial brooms and brushes. Was definitely we contribute a lot to one of our suppliers in Asia to make these products. Whoops, that jumped several ahead. I don't know if we could go two back, if that's possible. Let me see if I can do it. I can. Here we go. So that's for laminate that has printing defects on it. But what about some scrap that you generate that still has the paste in the tubes? So for certainly, we had programs to shred and chip uncontaminated laminate and plastics. And what we started seeing was employees actually cutting open tubes and making giant water baths to wash the paste out of it. So this was really started from a grassroots initiative where employees were collecting scrap off the line and making water baths to actually dissolve the paste so that we could feed our shredders. And that turned us into investing in dedicated water baths to actually clean some of our scrap product to send it for recycling. And this leads to the discussion about squeeze tubes. Squeeze tubes are one of the most widely used forms of packaging, and we were using so much energy to cut and wash tubes. So it was definitely a benefit for us to go ahead and shred or to find a recycling solution for these two for operations, so that we weren't taking, so that we could do it efficiently, right? So the logical approach we came to is, what if we could change the design of the tube so that it could be recycled commercially? And I learned, and I had no idea before starting, at Colgate, that toothpaste tubes are made out of a mix of materials, which really render them non-recyclable. A big obstacle to overcome is that there is a aluminum foil barrier between the layers of the tube, and that's used to retain freshness and flavor, and as well as it's made of a very flexible polyethylene. Let's see. So we redesigned these tubes to number 2, high density polyethylene. And polyethylene number 2 is a more rigid plastic that milk bottles are made of. So it did take some engineering to figure out, how do we go ahead and make that a more squeezable plastic that folks are more traditionally used to. So now we can directly recycle our scrap tubes from the production line. And then also our customers now have the added benefit of knowing that their toothpaste tubes can be recycled. But to build critical mass to assist recycling facilities in order to handle this change, it was very important for us to share this technology so that the entire industry is moving to recyclable tubes, so that it's very accepted within the recycling facilities that are receiving these tubes. And it goes hand in hand that we're all working on sustainability initiatives together. As I discussed earlier, we have many other products beyond toothpaste, and currently we're expanding and exploring opportunities with composters to see if they could accept our personal care products. And visiting these composters and trials, what you see is a big tipping floor where your waste is actually mixed with other traditional organics like food waste and plant matter, and run through a big shredder where the waste is then washed and vibrated to remove the plastics, filtered, and then actually soil piled for composting. And we have seen this be very successful in generating soil and soil amendments. So we're continuing to explore this safe and space, and are operating in this space currently with several sites taking advantage of this in regions where it's available. All right. The fourth area I'll be covering quickly is environmental purchasing policies. So an environmental purchasing policy prioritizes recycled and environmentally friendly products to minimize environmental impact. Key decision factors include the total cost over the initial price, considering life cycle costs, practicability, performance, and the availability at a reasonable cost. So my recommendation for the elements to include in an environmental purchasing policy is to really start with what's readily available if you don't have it. Look into your paper and office paper and janitorial supplies. 30 and 20 post-consumer recycled content is really the norm now these days for these products, and it's not really a challenge for suppliers to meet. So I would start there. Certainly, it's more challenging implementing new, a new, more environmentally sustainable product if there's a perceived mindset that it's inferior because it's made with a virgin matter. I've been most successful finding, uh, I've been most successful when finding a durable, acceptable product, using it as a pilot in certain places. So you'll find that others will be jealous and really assist you in the business case for full rollout. So I think of examples of office furniture, waste receptacles, office carpet made of post-consumer recycling content. Go ahead, have that installed in high profile areas. And then you'll see, folks saying, oh, that looks nice. That works very well. Can we upgrade the rest of the facility with these type of products? So that's just been a successful strategy that I've employed. There we go. So ways to prevent, your environmental purchasing policy from being a burden. I won't read everything on the slide here, but one, test the product. Make sure you're doing that pilot. Make sure it has the durability and quality you seek. That's critical. You don't want to overinvest something and then get bad reviews on it. So one is test the product. Two is make sure it's not overly packaged, right? We've all had that experience where we've ordered the tiniest thing, like a single roll of tape, and it's shipped in a giant box filled with air. So you kind of lose credibility when you get a product that you think is sustainable but has a lot of packaging associated with it, especially for shipping. Three, don't forget about the maintenance aspect of it. Maybe your environmental purchasing policy specifies a new glue or ink that's going to result in less waste, right? But now you have new equipment that has to run it, and certainly if that equipment breaks down, somebody might say it's just because of the new raw material for it. But in actuality, maybe there were additional maintenance requirements that needed to be implemented to work with the new material. So I think that's also a watch out. And lastly, it's all about communication. We have, any purchasing manager, we have learning curriculums for them to educate them in sustainability and to be trained on our environmental purchasing policies. So that is another way that we're successful, is that, everybody knows the goals and what we're trying to achieve, and how that connects to that global sustainability strategy that we have. All right. And coming to a conclusion here, a couple slides on offices. My biggest word of advice for the office is really communicate before making any changes, communicate prior, during the transition, and continuously thereafter. On this slide, I have the business case for removing desk side containers, and I think I saw it in the chat. Somebody said they're a big proponent for it. So here's the business case here, and some of the measurements that you can get by doing it. But imagine that you're used to working every day with your desk side container, and you show up one day and the containers are gone with no warning. This could cause resentment against your waste reduction program, and that's what you want to try to avoid. This is a little, I said I'd try to keep it fun. In this case, when we did this at our Global Technology Center, we had a mascot, and we had what we called the bin burglar, and we filmed a series of videos where the bin burglar would go around and steal the bins, in the middle of the night. And it added a little a little bit of a comedic element to what we were trying to do. But it was well received, and even the bin burglar robbed the executive conference room from their waste receptacles as well. So My advice is, keep it light, keep it, entertain folks, but also, it has to be within all levels of the organization, and communicate prior and during the transition, and then you also have to keep up with it, because new employees are going to come and just not understand why they don't have desk side waste containers anymore. So it does have to continue to be present. I won't spend a lot of time on this slide, certainly, as there's not much content here. But having, eliminating single-use items like coffee cups, and having amenities like dishwashers, can help you successfully execute your true zero waste, or definitely get credits. But they also go hand in hand with other certifications, other green certifications like LEED and well building credits. It really makes the workplace more welcoming environment for all folks to work in, and it feels a little bit more like home. And then one last slide. I used to be a environmental compliance manager for a site, and I can't tell you how much paperwork we retain for compliance. I've made hundreds and inherited hundreds of 3-ring binders for the storage of data or records, whether it's inspection logs or training forms or waste manifests. It all adds up. If this is like, a pro tip, you can take credit for this if you change and electronically digitize, a system that was previously captured just using paper. So go ahead and move to those tablets, move to electronic inspections, and capturing, data in electronic format. And it's a huge waste that you're going to eliminate from binders, from furniture, and certainly the office paper. Quantify it, and you can take credit for that as well. And that brings me to the end. Hopefully I did well on time and we're on track, but I'll turn it over to you, Alex.
Great. Thank you, Keith. Colgate and Palmolive is doing a lot of great work. My hat's off to everything that you guys are doing. We have lots of questions that have come in, and we're a little bit past the hour. First thing, I just want to make sure folks know that we do have a recording, and this slide deck will be available. We'll be sending out an email to everybody who registered in the next day or two. So if anybody needs to jump, just know that you'll be getting an email with this. Let me do a couple things. Actually, let's go ahead and go to do a couple questions right now. Will, if you want to turn off the screen share for just a moment, we'll bring that back in a second. But we did have I'll just take a couple questions to start off. One for you, Stephanie. I know we've talked about this on the side, but True is going to be launching version 2 coming up. Can you talk a little bit more about when that will be released and what's involved with that and how people can get involved?
Yeah, so, and I saw in the chat, True is a program of the U.S. Green Building Council. So please set up your True account, which is your USGBC account, and you can get notified of all of what is happening with True V2 along with other announcements. So as I said before, we want the community. So USGBC sends out the comment session, which will be about 45 days, hopefully starting sometime next week. We will have webinars, we will have individual meetings, like we'll be having a big meeting with Colgate. So if you have an organization and we want to do one-on-ones, we can do that. Otherwise, it's a public comment. We'll be showing you the new rating system, our new priorities, and you can go through on each credit and say, I love it, I hate it, this is what we want to change. So we want to hear from all of you, even if you're not proficient in True, you can start looking at that and making comments. And what I will say True V2 will probably launch in 2027, but we want True V2 to what is the zero waste economy going to look like in 5 years? So don't think about where it is now. Where do we want it to go? Because that's the importance of certification. Certification leapfrogs us over all these obstacles to get us to where we want to go. That's why we exist.
Great. Thanks. And then there was also another question about vendor checklist. And I know you answered in the chat, but could you, for everybody else's benefit, make reference to where folks can, some of the resources that True is going to be making available?
Yeah, so we do have webinars on our True website under events about purchasing and some of our clients highlighting what they've used. I need to sterilize some of our client examples, if you will, and then put them into an easy to use form. But you can look in the rating system. If you are a True advisor, you can go back into that section of the True advisor, and there are examples there. But once again, just focusing on closing the loop, buying back recycled materials, making sure they're recyclable, and creating those markets and that reduction in reuse. And repair. Repair is my favorite R.
Great. Mine too. Keith, for you, we had a question from Corey, going back to when you were talking about the reusable boxes in terms of the back end, and you know, working with vendors. The question was just sort of, when you work with vendors to trying to control the type of packaging and all that's incoming to your facilities, is there, I mean, who typically picks up that cost? Is that something where the vendor's expected to pay for the reusable system, or is that something that you sort of are, Colgate's involved in the process for how that system works, or is it more just sort of you provide the policy saying this is the way it has to come to us?
It's always a negotiation. One way that we've worked with suppliers would be to build KPIs into contracts, into master service agreements. So if they have certain performance levels to meet, we share some of those cost savings back with the vendors. That's one strategy that I could think of.
Yeah. Good. I mean, do you find that that some of your partners and suppliers, they also have some of these same goals, and that it's, in some cases, it's an easier sell than others, or is this sort of you're having to sort of bring them along and sort of nudging them?
No, I mean, absolutely. It's we're all doing it, right? I don't want to name all of our competitors and everyone, but all the retailers are doing it. Stephanie mentioned the distribution centers, the Walmarts, the Costcos. It is a part of every day, and I don't think suppliers, especially in the packing industry, bat an eye on it, and they're available, to work with you for sure.
Yeah. Here's one that either one of you can respond to. The question was, doing zero waste audits. How do you suggest audits get done when it comes to engagement with a large company where you've got a large, thousands of employees spread out? Are there strategies that are more impactful than others for how you engage people in that context, where you can't necessarily, go meet individually with people at their desk and talk about how your system works?
Yeah, so I'll go quickly. This is why the department by department or generation area. So one of our companies, they had zero waste captains on every floor, or if it was a large floor, they divided it into quadrants. And they had a little flag that had ask me questions about zero waste. And then practically what they do is they would pull, say on Wednesday, they pull the trash from Tuesday night, and they pull one bag from recycling, one bag from trash, one bag from composting, and then just open them up and have discussions. But you don't even have to pull a bag. You can pull the trash can and say, why is all this recycling in here? Why is the composting in here? Oh, we have tons, always focus on what is that 30%, 20, 30% of your materials. If it's a bunch of bottles and cans, maybe pull those out and donate those to local soccer clubs so they can make, money off of it. So really look at from a commodity and materials. And then once again, you want people to reduce and reuse, which saves them money. So if you talk about employees saving the company money, they'll get really engaged and they don't have to do that physical sort, but they can start from reduction and reuse.
Yeah. Keith, on your end,
add on to that just a little bit with competition's always good. So, definitely challenging, one floor versus another floor, or a department versus another department, and show those metrics. That moves the needle. A lot of our waste audits or dumpster dives are scheduled around Earth Day with signups. So that's certainly helped. And if you have that very large response, limit your signups, because you can't. Not everyone can go out and sort the trash sometimes when we have those signups. But film it, make promo videos, and share it and share the data. So that's my suggestions.
Yeah. This is a whole topic in and of itself, and it's actually, as I'll come to in a moment, we're going to be doing a future webinar in a couple months on employee engagement. But Will, if we can go and bring that slide back up, I think we'll hold off on the rest of the questions in the interest of time. But if you do have questions, I'm going to work with Stephanie and Keith offline to try and answer some of these in writing and provide answers. So if there are questions we have not gone to, which many we have been able to, we will be reaching out by email and try and respond to some of these. Just know. So just looking forward, a couple things. In a moment, I'm going to be inviting a colleague of mine, Sarah Hawthorne, to come up here for those who want to stick around for a product demo from Busch Systems, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But want to let you know that, again, the recording and slides are available, will be available online in the next day or two. We do a full archive of past programs going back the last 5 years on a number of these sort of subtopics we've touched on, including behavior and labels and signage. And so you can find more about that on our website or clicking on this QR link. And next slide. We've got 2 more programs coming up. Here, I'll just point out we're going to be focusing on food waste reduction programs next month. We've got speakers from the city and county of Denver talking about their food waste challenge, as well as Maggie Bain from Circular Innovation Council up in Ontario, Canada, talking about a program that they do. Both of these are focused sort of on the business assistance. How do you work with restaurants and hospitality, institutional settings, on implementing food waste programs? So it's really going to focus on that process of how do you work with businesses to help them get these built. And we'll be seeing 2 great case study examples of how that's done on March 11th. I don't have a slide here, but as I mentioned, also in April, we'll be doing a program on employee engagement, and we'll have some great speakers there and more information to share about that in the near future. Next slide. And if you happen to be out and about in San Diego or Massachusetts in the coming month, I'm going to be at several conferences myself. I'll be with Stephanie and next week in San Diego, actually, for the Green Schools Conference with a session on zero waste. And then I'll be speaking also at the Mass Recycle Conference in March in Massachusetts. So if you happen to be at either of those, please stop by and say hello. Always love getting a chance to talk with folks. Thank you again, Stephanie, Keith. Both of you are doing great work and appreciate everything that you shared. So thank you, and we'll look forward to hearing more about what you're doing down the road. And with that, we're pretty much, I think we're done. I think we have, do we have another slide, Will, I think? Oh yeah, just feedback. When you log off, you'll be seeing a prompt from Zoom. We'd love to get your feedback, any comments that you want to share with our speakers. Just we encourage you to take a minute to fill out the couple questions that you'll see that survey that should pop up when you drop off. And then the last slide, I think. Let me go ahead and invite my colleague. If you're not aware of Busch Systems, we are vendor of quality recycling and waste bins. And my colleague Sarah, for those who want to stay on, is going to talk a little bit more about some of the products that we sell. So Sarah, if you're on, we'll go ahead and bring you on.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Great. How are you doing today, Sarah?
Keeping warm, Alec. Keeping warm.
That's important. Great. I'll hand it off to you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're viewing from. Again, a huge shout out and thank you to Stephanie and Keith. Those were fantastic presentations. And thank you to Alec for facilitating this webinar today. My name is Sarah. I'm one of the business development managers here at Busch Systems. I have been with Busch for almost 9 years and primarily work within the public admin and hospitality sectors. We are happy to share that we just celebrated our 40th year in business last June and are a proud B Corp certified company. With that said, here at Busch, we truly love to connect with our customers, engage with our customers to talk about specific internal programs. We like to connect and talk about pain points and what we can do to help with those programs. And it all starts with the collection containers. So within Busch, we have a variety of containers to fit any type of establishment program. And we do like to highlight and suggest very important benefits for correct disposal, such as coloration, restricted openings, signage, labels, any type of visual aspects to help for those correct disposals, because ultimately that will help with the increased diversion rates. We have a variety of materials that we work with, plastics, powder coated metals, recycled lumber, 100% PCR content, and ranging anywhere from a 7.5 gallon to 50 gallon containers. As Stephanie mentioned, that there are always ever-changing collection streams that we can definitely help with. Example, printer toners, soft plastics, hard plastics. We can help fulfill those needs for those collection items. We thrive in our customization for signage, labels, even hot stamping aspects, and truly love to work with those customers to help in those aspects. We do have and promote restricted openings, as well as the different types of colored bodies. We have different types of lift lids. We have all these products available on our website. I just wanted to kind of showcase a few of them quickly, because I know it's been a longer afternoon. For example, this is our mosaic unit that has the 360 signage, which is super beneficial in any environment to emphasize those correct streams. Especially if you live in a more multicultural area, we always like to suggest for visual aspect icons. They're a huge benefit to help for aiding in those correct disposals versus a lot of busy verbiage. The restricted openings as well. For example, this is our waste watchers. If you have a system that has 3 large openings, there is a very good chance that the products are not going to be disposed of properly. So if you have something like a station here, you can see the restricted openings for mixed recycling, lift lids for organics, as well as for waste. We also can help if you have very specific verbiage that you use internally to help that uniform and consistency, waste versus landfill versus trash. We also have those options available to, again, keep that consistent uniform fashion. We also manufacture all of our products using North American source materials, which is very important to us. And just another highlight of a benefit as well. This is our Aura unit recycled lumber. And within the design aspect of this container, yes, it is a full bodied unit, not a modular unit, but it's double 36-gallon capacity. But internally, it has a full divided wall, which is from top to bottom to avoid any type of cross contamination, as well as promoting the bright colors, the restricted openings, clear signage, just to help in those correct disposals as well. I did like to mention too, I know Keith had some fantastic points and mentioned pilot programs. Those are absolutely a great starting point to figure out what works best within your internal streams, just to make sure that you are kind of on the right track and increase those diversion rates. So we're always happy to work within directly with our customers and figure out what would work best in regards to a pilot and to start that program. But we're always happy to touch base and schedule meetings and help our customers figure out what would work best for you and your internal collections. And feel free to reach out to Busch Systems anytime.